The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and crystal glasses, the kind of luxury setting where every detail is designed to impress. Boston's elite filled the long mahogany table, their laughter blending with the clink of silverware against fine china. I knew something was off the moment my father's lawyer appeared among the guests, seated smugly with a leather folder at his side. Then it came, the ambush. My parents rose with smiles too wide, their hands raised for silence. "Tonight, we honor our family's future," my father announced, his voice booming across the hushed room. My mother leaned proudly toward Isabel, her perfect daughter in a silk gown that sparkled like the centerpiece of the night. The lawyer unfolded papers. My parents revealed in front of Boston's wealthiest that Isabel would be the one to run my private clinic. Me? I was granted only a 25% share, as if my blood, sweat, and sacrifice could be reduced to a fraction. The guests cheered, toasting my sister as though the matter were sealed. But I had come prepared. With calm, deliberate movements, I opened my briefcase and slid a single document across the table. "Read Clause 4.3 aloud," I told the lawyer. The room fell into a tense silence as he read my exclusive ownership rights. Signed, legal, unshakable. My father's hand trembled on his glass. The air shifted. For the first time in my life, Boston's elite saw the truth. I was not the overlooked daughter anymore. I can still feel that moment, the weight of 27 years lifting from my shoulders. The silence in that room was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. But how did I get there? How does a daughter end up having to legally defend herself against her own family? It started long before the dinner, long before the clinic. It started the day Isabel was born. I was 4 when my sister arrived, a tiny bundle with golden curls and eyes that matched our father's. I remember pressing my small face against the nursery glass, watching, as my parents cooed over her. "She's perfect," my mother had whispered, and I'd nodded in agreement, too young to understand that perfection would become my greatest rival. Growing up in Beacon Hill meant growing up with expectations. The Carter family had standards: excellence in academics, impeccable manners, and above all, a flawless public image. Our brownstone with its manicured garden and polished brass fixtures was more museum than home, a showcase for my parents' success. For Isabel, meeting those expectations seemed effortless. She sparkled at social gatherings, won dance competitions, and charmed adults with practiced ease. My mother spent hours preparing her for society, while I buried myself in books and science journals. My 8th birthday fell on a Tuesday. I'd waited all day for my parents to acknowledge it, but dinner came and went without mention. Later, I found them in the study, reviewing Isabel's costume for an upcoming recital. "Mom?" I'd stood in the doorway, clutching a biology textbook. "Today's my birthday." My mother had glanced up, momentarily confused. "Oh, Claire, yes, of course. Your gift is on the hall table." It was a card with $20, tucked inside. The same card I received every year, while Isabel got bicycles, custom dollhouses, and elaborate parties. I excelled academically because it was the one area where I could distinguish myself. By high school, I was valedictorian, president of the science club, and accepted into an advanced program at Boston University. The day I was to give my valedictorian speech, I stood alone on the stage, scanning the audience for familiar faces that never appeared. My family had chosen to attend Isabel's dance showcase instead. That night, I made myself a promise. I would build something of my own, something no one could take from me. College was my escape. I worked double shifts at a campus cafe, lived on ramen noodles, and still maintained a perfect GPA in pre-med studies. Meanwhile, my parents funded Isabel's apartment in Back Bay and her frequent shopping trips, despite her mediocre grades and changing majors. When I was accepted to the doctoral program for physical therapy, my father's response was tepid. "That's fine, Claire, but have you considered a field with more prestige?" As if helping people walk again lacked value compared to Isabel's communications degree that she barely used. The clinic started as a dream during my residency at Massachusetts General. I'd noticed a gap in rehabilitation services, personalized care for patients with complex recovery needs. I spent nights drafting business plans, researching locations, and calculating costs. When I approached my parents for a loan, they dismissed it as a hobby project. "Focus on finding a good position at an established hospital," my father had advised. "Starting businesses is risky." I took out loans instead, found a small space in a medical building with peeling paint and outdated fixtures, spent weekends painting walls, assembling equipment, and building a website. Melissa, a nurse I'd befriended during residency, joined as my office manager, believing in my vision, when no one else did. The first year was brutal. 12-hour days, constant worry about making rent, nights spent sleeping on treatment tables because I was too exhausted to drive home. But slowly, patience came. Word spread about our results, our care, our difference. By year 3, we had a waiting list. By year 5, we'd expanded to the entire floor. Headlines in medical journals praised our innovative approach. Boston Magazine named us Best Rehabilitation Clinic. The struggling space had transformed into Carter Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. My name, my vision, my success. That's when my family suddenly took interest. My mother began dropping by unannounced, commenting on decor and suggesting improvements. My father introduced himself to patients as Dr. Carter's father, the one who made all this possible. Isabel started showing up claiming she was helping with the family business, despite having no medical training. At first, I thought they were finally proud, finally seeing me. But then came the suggestions. "Claire, darling," my mother said one afternoon, "your father and I were thinking Isabel could handle the business side of things. She has such a wonderful way with people." "The clinic is doing fine with my management," I replied. "But you're a doctor, dear. You should focus on patients. Isabel needs a career path, and this would be perfect." The pattern continued. My father brought potential investors who turned out to be his golf buddies looking to profit from my success. Isabel began using clinic resources for her friends, offering unauthorized discounts and rescheduling actual patients to accommodate them. When I confronted them, my father was indignant. "This is a family business, Claire. We're all invested in its success. You weren't invested when I was sleeping on treatment tables or eating vending machine dinners." I reminded him. "That's water under the bridge," he said dismissively. "We're here now." Sorries. Final straw came when I discovered Isabel had been introduced as the director at a healthcare networking event. When confronted, my parents insisted they were just helping with my public image. That's when I sought legal counsel. Attorney James Forrest listened patiently to my story, then nodded once. "Your family has no legal claim to your business, Dr. Carter, but we should take steps to ensure it stays that way." I drafted contracts, secured my ownership, protected my life's work with clauses and legal language that even my father, with all his connections, couldn't override, including Clause 4.3, exclusive ownership and management rights. The night of the dinner at the Rosewood Hotel, I knew what was coming. The invitation had been too insistent, the occasion too vague. A family celebration, my mother had called it. I just didn't expect them to make their move so publicly. The silence that followed the lawyer's reading of Clause 4.3 stretched like a taut wire across the ballroom. My father's attorney, Martin Kensington, cleared his throat awkwardly, the papers suddenly limp in his hands. He'd been a family friend for decades, the kind who attended Isabel's graduations, and sent me generic Christmas cards. "This appears to be a valid legal document," he admitted reluctantly. "According to this, Dr. Claire Carter maintains 100% ownership and exclusive management rights to Carter Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Any transfer or reassignment would require her explicit written consent." My father's face flushed crimson. My mother's smile froze in place like a porcelain mask about to crack. Isabel's eyes widened in genuine surprise. They hadn't even told her their plan might fail. Mrs. Eleanor Blackwell, the grande dame of Boston society, lifted her eyeglasses to her nose and peered at me with newfound interest. "Well, William," she said to my father, "it appears your younger daughter has inherited your business acumen after all." The table erupted in awkward murmurs. I remained standing, my heart pounding but my exterior calm. Years of being overlooked had taught me to hide my emotions well. "Claire," my father said, his voice low and controlled, "we should discuss this privately." "Why?" I asked simply. "You didn't feel the need for privacy when announcing Isabel's new position." A waiter appeared with dessert, oblivious to the tension. The clink of silverware against plates filled the uncomfortable silence. "You've misunderstood our intentions," my mother said, her voice honeyed for the benefit of their guests. "We only want what's best for the clinic. And for you, darling? What's best for me is maintaining control of the business I built," I replied evenly. "Now, shall we enjoy dessert? The panna cotta looks divine." I sat down, taking a deliberate bite of the creamy dessert. The conversation around the table slowly resumed, but the damage was done. Boston's elite had witnessed the Carter family facade crack, revealing the dysfunction beneath. After dinner, my father cornered me near the coat check. "What you did tonight was unforgivable," he hissed. His public charm evaporated. "What I did? You tried to steal my clinic. in front of 20 witnesses. We were giving you an opportunity to focus on medicine while Isabel handled the business aspects. I laughed without humor. Isabel can't even handle her own checkbook. You've bailed her out of credit card debt 3 times this year alone. His jaw tightened. That's different. She has other strengths. Like being your favorite? The words slipped out before I could stop them, carried by years of hurt. Something flashed in his eyes. Guilt, perhaps, or simply annoyance at being confronted. This isn't about favoritism, Claire. It's about utilizing everyone's strengths. My strength is building and running a successful clinic without your help. I'd appreciate if you'd respect that. My mother and Isabel approached, both wearing identical expressions of wounded betrayal, a look they'd perfected over years of manipulating situations to their advantage. You've embarrassed us in front of everyone who matters, my mother whispered fiercely. After everything we've done for you. I almost asked what, exactly, they'd done for me, but stopped myself. This wasn't about keeping score. It was about setting boundaries. I protected what's mine. I'm sorry if that embarrassed you, but I'm not sorry for standing up for myself. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. I thought you'd be happy to have me join you. We could have been a team. For a moment, I felt a twinge of sympathy. Isabel had been raised to believe she deserved whatever she wanted. Her entitlement wasn't entirely her fault. If you wanted to join the clinic, you could have asked me. Directly. Gotten proper training. Proven your commitment. Instead, you tried to take what you didn't earn. Girls, my father interrupted. This isn't the place. We'll discuss this tomorrow at brunch. I have patients tomorrow, I replied. And I believe we've said all that needs to be said. As I turned to leave, Eleanor Blackwell approached with her coat draped over her arm. Dr. Carter, she said, my nephew has been struggling with chronic pain after his skiing accident. I understand your waiting list is quite long, but I'd be very grateful if you could see him. I smiled, pulling a business card from my clutch. Have him call Melissa on Monday. We'll find a spot for him. Eleanor's eyes twinkled with approval as she took the card. You've built something remarkable, my dear. Don't let anyone take that from you, family or otherwise. I felt my parents stiffen beside me, but I kept my focus on Eleanor. Thank you, Mrs. Blackwell. That means a great deal coming from you. As I walked out into the cool Boston evening, I felt lighter than I had in years. The confrontation I dreaded for so long had finally happened, and I was still standing. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. How did it go? I typed back. I'll tell you Monday. But I think I finally found my voice. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls and 32 text messages from my family. I silenced my phone and took my coffee to the small balcony of my Brookline apartment. Across the city, I could see the morning sun glinting off the Charles River, the same river I'd gazed at as a lonely child, dreaming of escape. But I wasn't that child anymore. I was Dr. Claire Carter, founder and director of a thriving rehabilitation clinic, a woman who had finally learned to stand her ground. My doorbell rang just after 9. Through the peephole, I saw Isabel, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, a stark contrast to her usual polished appearance. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Can we talk? She asked, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. Just us, no mom and dad. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. My apartment was small but comfortable, filled with books and plants rather than the designer furnishings that filled my parents' home. Isabel perched awkwardly on my sofa, looking out of place among my mismatched furniture. I didn't know about the dinner, she said finally. About what they were planning to announce. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't know they were going to install you as director of my clinic? Well, yes, I knew that part, but not that they were going to do it publicly without talking to you first. She twisted a ring on her finger, a nervous habit from childhood. I thought you'd agreed to it. Why would I agree to that? She shrugged. Because you always give in? Because that's how it's always been? Her honesty was disarming. I sat across from her, studying the sister I'd grown up with but never truly known. Not anymore, Isabel. I've worked too hard for this. I know, she said softly. I've watched you, building something from nothing while I... She trailed off. While you what? While I... Coasted, she admitted. It's easy when everything's handed to you. Too easy. She met my eyes. I've never built anything, Claire. Never accomplished anything on my own. I didn't know how to respond. This vulnerability from Isabel was unprecedented. I thought working with you might change that, she continued. But I see now that wasn't the right way. I should have asked you directly. Respected what you created. For a moment, I glimpsed an alternate reality, one where Isabel and I might have been allies instead of rivals. But years of hurt and mistrust weren't easily erased. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully. But I need time, Isabel. This isn't something we can fix over coffee. She nodded, rising to leave. At the door, she paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you for standing up to them. I've never been brave enough to do that. After she left, I stood in my quiet apartment, wondering if her words were genuine or another manipulation. The Carters were masters at saying what people wanted to hear when their plans were thwarted. Only time would tell which Isabel was real, the sister who respected my boundaries, or the one who'd help my parents. Try again. Either way, I'd be ready. Monday morning arrived with a crisp autumn breeze carrying the scent of fallen leaves. I pulled into my reserved parking spot at the clinic, the Dr. Claire Carter Director sign a small but meaningful reminder of what I'd built. The 3-story medical building housed my clinic on the second floor, no longer just a rented space, but a healing haven I'd created. From nothing. The familiar weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders as I swiped my key card. Before the doors fully opened, Melissa's voice greeted me. There she is, Boston's newest legend. My office manager leaned against the reception desk, 2 coffee cups in hand. Her curly hair was pulled into a messy bun, and dark circles shadowed her eyes, evidence of another weekend spent reviewing patient files. Hardly a legend, I replied, accepting the coffee. But I did stand my ground. Melissa had been with me since day one, the only person who'd believed in my vision enough to leave a stable hospital job. She'd seen me cry in the supply closet during our first year when we nearly missed payroll. She'd helped me assemble treatment tables at midnight and calmed anxious patients when the heating failed midwinter. Tell me everything, she insisted, following me to my office. I recounted the dinner as I sorted through patient files, the ambush, my parents' announcement, the public humiliation they'd intended, and the unexpected turn when I produced Clause 4.3. Your father actually trembled? Melissa's eyes widened with satisfaction. His entire worldview shattered in one moment. The idea that his overlooked daughter could outsmart him was inconceivable. And Isabel visited you the next day? Alone? I nodded, still uncertain what to make of my sister's apparent remorse. She claimed she didn't know they planned to announce it that way. Melissa's skepticism mirrored my own. The Carters never do anything without choreographing every detail. She knew. Probably. Agreed. But there was something different about her. Almost genuine. Be careful, Melissa warned. They'll regroup and try another angle. Your parents don't surrender power easily. She was right, of course. William and Victoria Carter had built their reputation on control of their image, their social standing, and especially their daughters. Our conversation was interrupted by a gentle knock. Rachel, our newest physical therapist, peeked in. Sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Abernathy is here for her 9 quaug. She's asking specifically for you, Dr. Carter. I checked my watch. 8:55. I'll be right there. Melissa gathered her notebook. Mrs. Blackwell called, by the way. Her nephew is coming in Wednesday. I cleared your lunch hour. Thanks. I rose, straightening my lab coat. And, Melissa, if my parents call or show up, you're in sessions all day. She finished with a knowing smile. I've got your back, boss. The morning passed in a blur of patients. A college athlete recovering from ACL surgery, an elderly man regaining mobility after a stroke, a violinist with carpal tunnel syndrome. This was where I found purpose, in the precise adjustments of therapeutic techniques, in the small victories of increased range of motion, in the grateful smiles when pain subsided even slightly. During a brief break, I checked my phone to find 3 missed calls from my father and a text from my mother. This behavior is beneath you, Claire. We need to discuss the future of the clinic as a family. The audacity was breathtaking. I typed a response, deleted it, then settled on, the clinic's future is secure under my direction. I'm available to meet with you and Dad in 2 weeks if you'd like to discuss our relationship moving forward. Please respect my boundaries until then. I set my phone aside, refusing to be drawn into their emotional manipulation. The Claire who desperately sought their approval was gone, replaced by a woman who valued her own worth. The afternoon brought a new patient, a teenage girl named Sophie, injured in a gymnastics accident. As I guided her through initial assessments, I noted her father's anxious hovering, his eyes never leaving his daughter's face. She's going to be okay, I assured him gently. The injury isn't as severe as it could have been. But will she compete again? He asked, his voice tight with worry. Before I could answer, Sophie spoke up. Dad, please, let Dr. Carter do her job. I hid my smile at her directness. With consistent therapy and patience, Sophie has an excellent chance of returning to gymnastics. But recovery isn't linear. There will be good days and challenging ones. Whatever it takes, her father said, squeezing his daughter's hand. We'll be here every step. Something twisted in my chest, a pang of wistful recognition. This was how parents should respond to their children's dreams. With support, not sabotage. With presence, not absence. After reviewing Sophie's treatment plan and scheduling her next appointments, I returned to my office to find a large flower arrangement on my desk. Roses and lilies in an ornate crystal vase. These just arrived, Melissa said, handing me the card. Guess who? My parents' embossed stationery contained a single line. We only want what's best for you. Dinner at the house, Friday, 7 p.m., just family. I set the card down, unimpressed by their attempt at reconciliation through expensive flowers. They still don't get it, do they? Narcissists rarely do, Melissa replied. Are you going? I considered the question. Part of me wanted to decline, outright to sever the toxic connection that had undermined my confidence for decades. But another part, perhaps the doctor in me, recognized that clean breaks were rare in families. Sometimes healing required facing the wound directly. I think I have to, I said finally, but on my terms this time. The rest of the week passed without further contact from my family. I immersed myself in work, finalizing plans for the clinic's expansion into the vacant space on our floor. The additional treatment rooms would allow us to accept more patients and hire 2 more therapists. Growth based on excellence, not manipulation. Friday evening arrived too quickly. I stood before my closet, deliberating over what to wear to my parents' house, a place that had never truly been home. I settled on a simple black dress and pearl earrings, professional, polished, but not trying too hard. The woman in the mirror looked confident, a far cry from the invisible daughter who had once desperately sought validation. As I drove to Beacon Hill, memories surfaced like bubbles in still water. Christmas mornings when Isabel's pile of gifts dwarfed mine. High school achievements announced with, "That's nice, dear," while Isabel's smallest accomplishments warranted celebration dinners. The familiar ache of comparison rose in my chest, but I breathed through it, reminding myself that I was no longer defined by their perception. The Carter family home stood elegant and imposing as ever, its red brick facade and black shutters projecting old Boston money and tradition. I parked on the street rather than in the driveway, a small assertion of independence, a reminder that I could leave whenever I chose. My mother answered the door herself, a rare occurrence that signaled the absence of household staff. No witnesses to whatever would unfold tonight. "Claire, darling," she greeted, air kissing near my cheek. Her Chanel perfume enveloped me in memories of childhood disappointments. "Come in. Your father and Isabel are in the dining room." I followed her through the immaculate foyer, past family portraits where Isabel always stood front and center, my father's hand on her shoulder while I lingered at the edge of the frame. The dining room gleamed with candlelight reflecting off the antique table that had witnessed generations of Carter family dynamics. My father stood as I entered, his usual commanding presence somehow diminished. "Claire?" he said with a nod. "Thank you for coming." Isabel sat quietly, her expression unreadable. The table was set with the family china reserved for important occasions. Whatever they had planned, they considered it significant. As I took my seat, I couldn't help but notice the place settings. My father at the head of the table, my mother to his right, Isabel to his left, and me at the far end, physically and symbolically distanced. Some patterns never changed. "Wine?" My father lifted a decanter of what was undoubtedly an expensive vintage. "Just water, please," I replied. "I'm on call for emergency patients." A subtle reminder that while they played family politics, I was building a life of purpose. The message wasn't lost on him. My mother filled the awkward silence with trivial chatter about neighbors and social events, avoiding any mention of the confrontation at the Rosewood. The tension hovered like an uninvited guest until the first course was served. Finally, my father set down his soup spoon and cleared his throat. "Claire, about the other night," I braced myself for whatever came next, determined to maintain the boundaries I'd finally established. The girl who had accepted scraps of attention was gone. In her place sat a woman who knew her worth. "We may have approached the situation inelegantly," my father continued, selecting his words with the precision of a surgeon. "Our intentions were good, but the execution was flawed." My mother nodded earnestly. We only want to help you, darling. The clinic's is doing so well, and you thought you could take control of something I built without my consent. I finished for her. Let's not pretend this was about helping me. Silence fell over the table. My directness had never been welcome in the Carter household, where uncomfortable truths were buried beneath layers of politeness and deflection. Isabel pushed her soup around the bowl. I told them it was wrong, she said quietly. After I visited you, I told them they needed to apologize. My father's jaw tightened. He wasn't accustomed to being challenged by either daughter. We're not here to assign blame, Isabel. We're here to move forward as a family. Moving forward requires acknowledging what happened, I pointed out. You tried to publicly humiliate me and take over my clinic. That's not something we can just smooth over with an expensive dinner. No one was trying to humiliate you, my mother protested, her voice rising slightly. We were trying to leverage our connections to benefit the family business. It's not a family business, I said firmly. It's my business. I founded it, I built it, I run it. My father leaned forward, switching tactics. Claire, be reasonable. You're an excellent physical therapist, but business growth requires capital and connections. We can provide both. My clinic has been profitable for 3 years, I countered. We're expanding next month, and I've been approached about opening a second location. I don't need your capital or connections. His eyebrows rose slightly. He hadn't known about the expansion or the second location. Good. Let him see that I didn't need to share everything with them. That's impressive, he admitted reluctantly. But imagine how much more you could accomplish with our help. At what cost? I asked. Control? Independence? The culture I've carefully built with my team? Melissa's warnings echoed in my mind. They weren't surrendering. They were simply changing strategies. Perhaps we should discuss this over the main course, my mother suggested, rising to retrieve the serving dishes from the kitchen. When she returned with roasted duck and vegetables, the conversation shifted to safer topics. Boston politics, upcoming charity galas, a mutual acquaintance's divorce. The familiar dance of Carter dinner conversation, where real issues remained unaddressed. I participated, minimally, watching the family dynamics with newfound clarity. My father dominated the conversation. My mother supported his perspectives while adding social context, and Isabel played the role of charming daughter, laughing at appropriate moments and deferring to our parents' opinions. Had I once tried to fit into this choreographed performance? The thought made me sad rather than angry. I'd spent years believing something was wrong with me for not slotting neatly into their expectations. Claire, you're quiet tonight, my mother observed during dessert. Her specialty chocolate mousse, usually reserved for Isabel's birthdays. Another sign they were trying to win me over. I'm reflecting, I replied honestly, on how different our perspectives are about what happened and where we go. From here. My father set down his dessert spoon. What do you want, Claire? Lay it out plainly. The directness surprised me. William Carter typically preferred indirect approaches that left him room to maneuver. I want respect, I said simply. Respect for what I've built. Respect for my boundaries. Respect for my choices, even when they differ from what you would choose. We do respect you, my mother insisted. Your actions suggest otherwise. Trying to install Isabel as director without my consent wasn't respectful. Claiming credit for my clinic's success isn't respectful. Dismissing my career choice as less prestigious than what you wanted for me isn't respectful. My father's expression darkened. We've given you every advantage. No, I interrupted, surprising even myself. You gave Isabel every advantage. I worked my way through college. I took out loans for my doctorate. I slept on treatment tables when I couldn't afford both rent and clinic expenses. I don't resent Isabel for what you gave her, but don't rewrite history to claim you supported me equally. Isabel looked down at her plate, a flush spreading across her cheeks. That's unfair, Claire, my mother protested. We've always been proud of your accomplishments. Proud enough to skip my valedictorian speech for Isabel's dance recital? Proud enough to forget my birthdays? Proud enough to call my clinic a hobby project until it became successful? The questions hung in the air, unanswerable because we all knew the truth. My father's strategy shifted again. The past is the past, Claire. We're offering partnership now, a chance to truly make the Carter name synonymous with healthcare excellence in Boston. The clinic already has an excellent reputation, I replied, and it's successful because of the culture and values I've established, not because of the Carter name. Don't be naive, my father scoffed. Names and connections matter in this city. Always have, Always will. I set my napkin beside my plate and stood. Thank you for dinner. I think we've said all there is to say tonight. My mother looked alarmed. You're leaving? We haven't resolved anything. There's nothing to resolve, I said gently. I've made my position clear. The clinic remains under my sole ownership and direction. If you want a relationship with me beyond that, it needs to be built on genuine respect, not control. My father rose, his patience visibly thinning. You're being stubborn and short-sighted. This attitude will only harm your future prospects. My prospects are excellent, Dad. I've made sure of that myself. As I turned to leave, Isabel stood suddenly. I'm going with Claire. My parents stared at her in shock. What? My mother demanded. I need to talk to my sister, Isabel said firmly. Alone. Without waiting for permission, a first for the golden child, Isabel grabbed her purse and followed me to the door. We walked in silence to my car, the cool evening air a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere inside. That was unexpected, I said finally, unlocking the doors. Isabel slid into the passenger seat. They won't change, you know. Not really. No, I admitted, but I had to try. For my own peace of mind. We drove in silence for several blocks, the familiar streets of Boston passing in a blur of streetlights and shadows. Finally, Isabel spoke. I want to apologize. Not for them, for me. I've been complicit in how they've treated you, benefited from it, maybe even enjoyed it sometimes. Her voice cracked slightly. What kind of sister? Does that make me? The vulnerability in her voice seemed genuine, but years of disappointment had taught me caution. Why the sudden change of heart, Isabel? She stared out the window. It's not sudden. Not really. I've always known things weren't fair, but it was easier to accept the narrative that I was special than to acknowledge they were neglecting you. And now? Now I'm 33. Years old with a communications degree I barely use, living in an apartment our parents pay for, with no real accomplishments of my own. She turned to face me. While you've built something meaningful despite having no support, it's humbling. I pulled into a parking spot outside a small cafe still open for the late evening crowd. Do you want coffee? Isabel nodded, seeming relieved by the, change in venue. Inside, away from the weight of the Carter family home, surrounded by the gentle murmur of normal people living normal lives, we ordered coffees and found a quiet corner table. What will you do now? I asked, watching my sister cradle her mug like a lifeline. Go back to the family fold? She shook her head slowly. I don't think I can. Not after seeing clearly for the first time. She met my eyes. How did you do it, Claire? How did you stand up to them all these years? I considered the question. I didn't. Not really. I just built my own life outside their reach. It was only when they tried to take that from me that I found the courage to confront them directly. I want that courage, Isabel said quietly. I want to find out who I am without their definitions. I studied my sister's face, the familiar features that had been held up as the Carter ideal while mine were subtly critiqued. For the first time, I saw beyond the golden child to the woman beneath, confused, insecure, and possibly genuine in her desire for change. It won't be easy, I warned her. They won't let you go without a fight. I know, she whispered, but I'm tired of being their puppet. Seeing you stand up to them, it showed me another way might be possible. I wasn't ready to fully trust her yet, but something had shifted between us. A tiny seedling of potential understanding pushing through decades of cultivated rivalry. What would you do? If you could do anything? I asked. A small smile touched her lips. I've always loved interior design. Not just the aesthetic part, but creating spaces that function well for people with different needs. She hesitated. Actually, I had some ideas for your clinic expansion. Ways to make the space more welcoming for patients with anxiety or sensory issues. I raised an eyebrow, surprised by the thoughtfulness of the concept. But that's your territory, she added quickly. I understand if you don't want my input. I took a sip of coffee, considering the olive branch she seemed to be extending. Maybe you could show me your ideas. No promises, but I'd look at them. The hope that flashed across her face was unmistakably genuine. For the first time in our adult lives, we were having a conversation as potential allies rather than competitors. Whether this newfound connection would survive the powerful undertow of our family, dynamics remained to be seen. But sitting across from Isabel in that quiet cafe, I allowed myself to imagine the possibility of a different kind of sister relationship, one built on mutual respect rather than rivalry. It was, at least, a beginning. Monday morning brought a deluge of patients and a surprise visitor. I was reviewing treatment notes when Melissa knocked on my office door, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Isabel is here," she announced, keeping her voice low. "She says she has something to show you about the expansion plans." I set down my pen, remembering our conversation at the cafe. "Did she make an appointment?" "No, but your 10:30 canceled. She's been waiting in the lobby for 20 minutes, looking nervous." Melissa's skepticism was understandable. For years, she'd witnessed firsthand how my family had undermined me. She'd held tissues during breakdowns after particularly brutal holiday dinners and helped me draft professional responses to my parents' intrusive suggestions for the clinic. "Send her in," I decided. "But stay close." Melissa nodded. "I'll be right outside with the panic button." Her attempt at humor didn't quite mask her protective instinct. Moments later, Isabel appeared in my doorway, clutching a large portfolio case. Her usual polished appearance had been replaced by something more subdued. Simple jeans, a sweater, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Without her usual armor of designer labels and perfect makeup, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "I wasn't sure you'd see me," she said, hovering uncertainly at the threshold. "I said I'd look at your ideas," I reminded her. "I keep my promises." She entered cautiously, as if stepping into foreign territory. In many ways it was. This space represented everything she'd been given freely that I had fought to build. "I've been working on these all weekend," she said, unzipping the portfolio. "After our coffee, I couldn't sleep, so I just started sketching." She spread several detailed renderings across my desk, floor plans and interior designs for the expansion space. I leaned forward, professional interest overriding my personal wariness. The designs were surprisingly thoughtful. Isabel had created a layout that maximized natural light, incorporated calming color schemes backed by research on their psychological effects, and included thoughtful details like privacy screens and sensory-friendly waiting areas. "You did all this in one weekend?" I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice. She nodded, a hint of pride breaking through her nervousness. "I've always done this, designing spaces in my head. I just never showed anyone because it seemed, I don't know, not impressive enough. Not impressive to Mom and Dad." "You mean?" She glanced up, recognition flashing between us. "Exactly. Interior design wasn't prestigious enough for the Carters. I studied the drawings more carefully, noting the ergonomic considerations and traffic flow patterns that would benefit both patients and staff. These are actually good, Isabel. Really good." Her face lit up with genuine pleasure. Not the practiced charm she usually displayed, but something raw and real. "There's more," she said, pulling out additional sketches. "I researched sensory considerations for patients with trauma or anxiety. These panels can create adjustable spaces for different therapy needs." As she explained her concepts, I glimpsed a version of my sister I'd never seen before. Passionate, knowledgeable, and genuinely engaged with something beyond her social image. This wasn't the Isabel who'd been paraded before Boston society. This was someone new, or perhaps someone who had been hidden all along. "Where did you learn all this?" I asked after she finished her presentation. She shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "I've taken some online courses, read books, followed designers who specialize in healthcare spaces." A pause. "I've had a lot of free time to fill." The admission hung between us, an acknowledgement of the emptiness that had lurked beneath her seemingly perfect life. "Have you shown Mom and Dad these designs?" Isabel shook her head quickly. "No." "After Friday night," she trailed off, "I haven't spoken to them since we left. Dad called 6 times yesterday, but I didn't answer." This was unprecedented. Isabel had never defied our parents before, never ignored their calls or declined their invitations. The realization that she might be serious about forging her own path shifted something in my perception of her. "They'll escalate," I warned. "They always do when they feel they're losing control." "I know." She gathered her drawings carefully. "But I'm tired of being controlled. Seeing you stand up to them, it made me realize I never have." The moment felt significant, a potential turning point in our relationship. But years of disappointment had taught me caution. "These designs are impressive, Isabel. I'd like to show them to my contractor and get his feedback. No promises, but they deserve serious consideration." Her smile was like sunrise, gradual, then brilliant. "Really? You'd actually use my ideas?" "If they're the best option for my patients and staff, yes." I kept my tone professional, but not cold. "That's how business decisions should be made. On merit, not family politics." She nodded, absorbing the subtle lesson. Thank you for looking, or giving me a chance at all. As she turned to leave, I made a decision that surprised even me. Isabel, if you're serious about interior design, I know someone who might be willing to mentor you. She specializes in healthcare spaces. You'd do that for me, after everything? I'm not doing it for you, I clarified. If these designs are any indication, you have genuine talent that could benefit patients. I'm doing it because it's the right thing professionally. She accepted this with a nod. I understand. And thank you. After Isabel left, Melissa appeared in my doorway. So, was it another Carter family scheme? I handed her the designs. See for yourself. Melissa flipped through the renderings, her eyebrows rising progressively. These are actually really good. Isabel did these? Apparently, she's been interested in design for years but never pursued it seriously because it wasn't prestigious. Enough, Melissa snorted. The Carter family legacy of squashed potential strikes again. She looked up from the drawings. Do you trust this sudden transformation? Trust? Not entirely, I admitted. But I believe she might genuinely want to change. Whether she has the strength to stand up to our parents long-term remains to be seen. Speaking of your parents, Melissa handed me a small envelope. This was delivered by courier while you were with Isabel. I recognized my mother's monogrammed stationery immediately. Inside was a handwritten note. Your father and I are hosting the hospital board dinner this Saturday. Your presence is expected. 7 p.m. sharp. Professional attire. No request, no acknowledgement of our previous conversation, just a command disguised as an invitation. Some things never changed. I placed the note in my drawer without responding. The old Claire would have rearranged her schedule to comply, seeking approval that never came. The new Claire had patients to treat and a business to run. The week progressed with its usual rhythm of patient sessions, staff meetings, and paperwork. I contacted my designer friend about possibly mentoring Isabel, forwarding the expansion designs with her permission. These show promise, my friend replied. Send her my way if she's serious. By Thursday, I'd heard nothing further from my parents, but the clinic contractor had reviewed Isabel's designs and pronounced them innovative and practical, high praise from someone who typically communicated in grunts and nods. I texted Isabel, contractor likes your designs. If you're interested, Catherine Moore would like to meet you. She's one of Boston's top healthcare designers. Her response came immediately. Really? Yes, thank you. Later that afternoon, during a brief break between patients, my phone rang with my father's number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message while reviewing charts. Claire, your mother and I expect confirmation of your attendance Saturday. The Brighams will be there, and Harrison has specifically asked about you. His tone suggested this should be incentive enough. Harrison Brigham was the hospital board president and a longtime family friend. I deleted the message without responding. If they wanted to discuss my attendance at family functions, they could acknowledge my boundaries first. Friday brought another courier envelope, this time containing a formal invitation to the dinner and a handwritten note from my mother. Dr. Harrison Brigham has expressed interest in discussing potential hospital privileges with you. This could be an important opportunity for your career. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost laughable. Dangling career opportunities had been their tactic throughout my life. The promise of advantages if I complied with their expectations. I drafted a polite decline, citing prior commitments, and arranged for it to be delivered to my parents' home. Then I immersed myself in patient care, pushing family politics from my mind. As I was preparing to leave that evening, Melissa stopped me at the door. Heads up, Isabel just called. She sounded upset. Said she needs to talk to you but wouldn't say why. I told her you were finishing with a patient. Did she say where she is? No, but I heard what sounded like cafe noise in the background. I nodded. Thanks. I'll handle it. Outside, the crisp autumn evening wrapped around me as I dialed Isabel's number. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with emotion. Claire? Can you meet me, please? What's happened? Mom and Dad happened, she said, a bitter laugh escaping her. I just need to talk to someone who understands them, who understands what they're capable of. I hesitated only briefly. Where are you? Cafe Nero on Newberry, the one with the back patio. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I found Isabel at a corner table on the deserted patio, her eyes red-rimmed and her hands wrapped around an untouched mug. She looked up as I approached, relief washing over her face. You came, she said, as if she'd half expected me to abandon her. The realization stung. Was this how little trust existed between us? You said it was important, I replied, sliding into the chair across from her. What did they do? She pushed her phone across the table. They've cut me off, completely. Credit cards, apartment, car, everything. Dad says I can have it all back when I stop this childish rebellion and remember where my loyalties should lie. I scrolled through the text messages from our father. Cold, calculating threats wrapped in concern. Classic William Carter manipulation. This is because you didn't help them take over my clinic, I stated, not asked. She nodded miserably. And because I missed the charity luncheon on Wednesday to meet with your designer friend Catherine. And because I told Mom I was considering taking design courses. So they're punishing you for showing independence. For the first time in your life. Exactly. She ran a hand through her hair, disheveled in a way Isabel's appearance never was. I knew they controlled everything, but I didn't realize how completely until I tried to step away. Where will you go? I asked, handing her phone back. I don't know. Isabel's voice was small, stripped of its usual confidence. The apartment lease is in their name. Dad says I have until Monday to reconsider my position, or they'll have my things put in storage. She laughed hollowly. 33 years. Old, and I have nowhere to go. I studied my sister's face, looking for signs of manipulation or deception. All I saw was genuine fear and humiliation, emotions I recognized intimately from my own experiences with our parents. What about friends? I suggested. Surely someone from your social circle has a guest room. She shook her head. Those aren't real friendships, Claire. They're social. Alliances, connections maintained through parties and fundraisers, all funded by our parents. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm not like you. I don't have people who care about me for myself. The vulnerability of her admission surprised me. Isabel had always seemed to have everything. Friends, admirers, opportunities. To discover that she felt as isolated in her own way as I had felt in mine was unexpectedly poignant. What about the design mentor meeting? How did that go? I asked, changing the subject to give her time to compose herself. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Catherine is amazing, brilliant, and straightforward. She looked at my portfolio and said I have untrained talent that needs direction. Isabel's expression brightened briefly. She offered me an apprenticeship, minimum wage starting at the bottom, learning the business properly. That's fantastic, I said, meaning it. Will you take it? Her smile faded. I was going to. Then Dad called about the car payment being canceled, and I realized I can't even get to an office without transportation. Can't rent an apartment without credit or savings. She looked down at her hands. I've never been independent, Claire. I don't know how to start from nothing. The irony wasn't lost on me. Isabel, who had been given everything, now faced the prospect of building from scratch at an age when I had already established my clinic. Yet instead of satisfaction, I felt an unexpected pang of empathy. I knew what it was to feel adrift, to struggle against forces that seemed determined to limit your potential. You could stay with me, I heard myself say. Temporarily, until you figure things out. Isabel's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. What? I was equally surprised by my offer, but pressed on. My apartment has a small guest room. It's nothing luxurious, but it would give you time to find your footing. Take the apprenticeship. Learn how to be independent. You would do that? After everything? I'm not doing it for the past, I clarified. I'm doing it because I believe people deserve the chance to change, to become more than what others have defined them as. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't deserve your kindness. Probably not, I agreed candidly. But that's the thing about kindness. It isn't always about what people deserve. I leaned forward, my voice firmer. But I need to be clear. This isn't forgiveness for decades of family dynamics. It's not erasing the past. It's offering a way forward that's different. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. And I'll find my own place as soon as I can. There will be rules, I continued. No involving our parents in my personal life. No unauthorized visitors. You contribute to household expenses as you're able. And you respect that I need quiet and privacy after work. Of course, she agreed quickly. Anything. I pulled out my keys, removing a small silver one from the ring. This is my spare. The address is 247 Marlborough Street, apartment 3B. You can move your essentials in this weekend. She took the key carefully, as if it might shatter. What about Monday? Your parents' deadline? We'll go together to collect the rest of your things, I decided. They're less likely to make a scene with both of us there. Relief washed over her face. Thank you, Claire. I know I haven't earned your trust yet, but I promise I won't let you down. Don't make promises, I advised. Just make different choices. As we parted ways outside the cafe, I felt a curious mixture of apprehension and hope. Was I setting myself up for disappointment by helping Isabel? Or was I witnessing the beginning of a genuine transformation in my sister, and possibly our relationship? Only time would tell. I spent Saturday morning preparing the guest room, a small space I primarily used for storage. After clearing out boxes and giving it a thorough cleaning, I surveyed the Spartan accommodations. A twin, bed, a small dresser, and a reading lamp. It was nothing like the luxury Isabel was accustomed to, but it was clean and private. Melissa called as I was changing the sheets. "You're doing what?" she exclaimed when I explained the situation. "Offering my sister temporary housing," I repeated calmly. "The same sister who was ready to take over your clinic last week? The golden child who's benefited from your marginalization your entire life?" Melissa's protective instinct was in full force. "Claire, this has disaster written all over it." "Maybe," I acknowledged. "But she's trying to break free from our parents' control. I know better than anyone how difficult that is." Melissa sighed heavily. "You have the most frustratingly big heart of anyone I know. Just be careful. The Carters have decades of experience manipulating you. I'm not the same person they could manipulate so easily," I reminded her. "I'm going in with open eyes." "Fine. But the first sign of trouble, you call me, day or night." After we hung up, I contemplated the complex emotions swirling through me. Was I helping Isabel out of genuine compassion, or was part of me seeking validation, proving I was better than the family that had undervalued me? The truth, I suspected, lay somewhere in between. By Sunday afternoon, Isabel had brought over 2 suitcases of essentials. She stood in the guest room doorway, taking in the modest space with an expression I couldn't quite read. "It's perfect," she said finally. "Thank you. There are fresh towels in the bathroom cabinet," I told her. "The Wi-Fi password is on the fridge. I've cleared a shelf in the kitchen for your things." She nodded, setting down her designer luggage, one of the few markers of her previous life she'd brought with her. "I've been thinking about tomorrow. Dad will be at the office in the morning, but Mom will be home. Do you want to go when she's out?" I asked. Isabel shook her head. "No, I need to face her. Make it clear this isn't a temporary rebellion." I studied my sister with new respect. Standing up to Victoria Carter required significant courage. Our mother's disapproval could be more cutting than any knife. "We'll go after my morning patients," I decided. "I can clear my lunch hour." Monday arrived with a sense of impending confrontation. I moved through my morning appointments on autopilot, my mind preoccupied with what awaited us at my parents' home. At 11:30, I met Isabel in the clinic lobby. She wore simple jeans and a sweater, practical clothes for packing, but had applied her makeup with particular care, as if preparing armor for battle. "Ready?" I asked. She nodded, though her knuckles were white around her purse strap. "As I'll ever be." The drive to Beacon Hill passed in tense silence. As we pulled up to the familiar brownstone, Isabel took a deep breath. "She'll try to divide us," she warned. "It's what she does." "I know," I replied. "Just focus on getting your things. The less said, the better." My mother opened the door before we could ring the bell. Her perfectly composed exterior revealed only the slightest tightening around her eyes at the sight of us. Standing together. "Isabel, darling, and Claire, what a surprise." Her voice was honeyed with false warmth. "Come in. I've just made tea." "We're not here for tea, Mother," Isabel said firmly. "I'm here to collect my things." "Don't be ridiculous." My mother waved a dismissive hand. "This little tantrum has gone on long enough. Your father is prepared to forgive your recent behavior if you'll offer. Simply be reasonable." "It's not a tantrum," Isabel countered. "I'm making a change. I've accepted an apprenticeship with a design firm." My mother's smile faltered slightly. "A what?" "Darling, you can't be serious. Working as some sort of decorator? That's beneath you." "It's beneath the daughter you wanted me to be," Isabel corrected her. "Not the person I actually am." My mother's gaze shifted to me, her eyes narrowing. "I see. Claire has filled your head with these notions of independence, always so determined to reject family support." "This isn't about Claire," Isabel insisted. "It's about me finally making my own choices. By throwing away every advantage we've given you." My mother's voice sharpened. "Living in some shabby apartment? Working for minimum wage? Is that really what you want?" "Yes," Isabel said simply. "Because it will be mine. Not something handed to me because I play the role you've assigned." My mother stepped back, reassessing the situation. Her gaze flicked between us, calculation evident in her eyes. Finally, she sighed dramatically. I suppose you should pack your things then, though your father will be devastated by this betrayal. As Isabel moved past her toward the stairs, my mother caught my arm. A word, Claire? In private. I glanced at Isabel, who nodded slightly. I'll be fine. This won't take long. Once Isabel disappeared upstairs, my mother's facade dropped completely. What exactly do you think you're doing? She demanded, her voice cold. Supporting my sister's decision to become independent, I replied. Evenly. By turning her against her family? By filling her head with resentment? Isabel made this decision on her own. I'm simply offering temporary housing while she gets established. My mother laughed without humor. Always the martyr, aren't you, Claire? So determined to prove you're better than the rest of us. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. But we both know the truth. You're helping Isabel to spite us, to finally have something over the sister who always came first. The accusation struck close enough to my own doubts to sting, but I refused to show it. Think what you want, Mother. Isabel is an adult, making her own choices. Choices she'll regret when she discovers how difficult the real world can be without connections or financial support. My mother's smile turned predatory. And then who will she blame for her failures? The parents who wanted to protect her? Or the sister who encouraged her to throw everything away? Before I could respond, Isabel appeared on the landing, dragging a large suitcase. Mom, where are the boxes Dad mentioned? For the rest of my things? My mother's expression transformed instantly, concern replacing coldness. In the hall closet, darling. But please reconsider. Your room is always here for you. Not without conditions, Isabel replied, her voice steady. And I'm done living conditionally. As Isabel moved toward the closet, my mother leaned close to me. This isn't over, Claire. Not by a long shot. I met her gaze without flinching. For once, Mother, we agree on something. The battle. Lines had been drawn. Not just for my clinic anymore, but for Isabel's future as well. And something told me my parents would not surrender either without a fight. The first month of Isabel living with me was an adjustment for us both. After years of housekeepers and prepared meals, my sister discovered the mundane realities of everyday life: laundry, grocery shopping, cooking, and the strict budgeting required when living on an apprentice's salary. How do people survive on this? She asked one evening, staring at her bank balance after depositing her first paycheck. They prioritize, I replied, sorting through mail at the kitchen counter. Needs before wants. It gets easier with practice. To her credit, Isabel adapted with surprising resilience. She learned to make coffee instead of buying it, brought lunch from home, and mastered the art of public transportation. Small victories that most people took for granted, but for someone who had never had to consider the cost of anything, they represented significant growth. At Catherine's design firm, Isabel started at the bottom, organizing sample libraries, running errands, and absorbing knowledge like a sponge. She would return home each evening exhausted but animated, sharing insights about sustainable materials or accessibility considerations with genuine enthusiasm. Catherine asked me to draft concept boards for a pediatric clinic today, she announced one Friday, her face flushed with pride. She said my understanding of how environment affects patient anxiety shows promise. That's fantastic, I said, genuinely pleased for her. You've come a long way in a short time. Our parents, predictably, had not accepted the new arrangement with grace. The first week brought daily calls and texts, alternating between guilt-inducing pleas and thinly veiled threats. When those tactics failed, they switched to strategic silence, punctuated by occasional concerned messages from family friends. Harrison Ayers? Brigham cornered me at the hospital today, I told Isabel over dinner one night. Said Dad is deeply worried about your well-being and future? Isabel rolled her eyes. Translation. Dad is deeply worried about how my choices reflect on him. Exactly. I assured Harrison you're thriving in your new career path. She looked up from her plate, surprise flickering across her face. You defended me? Of course I did. You're doing the work, showing up every day, learning a profession from the ground up. That deserves respect, not undermining. A tentative smile formed on her lips. Thank you for believing in me when you had every reason not to. As weeks passed, a fragile trust began developing between us. Not the complete trust of close siblings, but something tentatively hopeful. We established routines and boundaries, discovering that without our parents' manipulative presence, we could actually enjoy each other's company. October brought the completion of my clinic's expansion. The new space incorporated many of Isabel's design elements: soft lighting, privacy-focused treatment areas, and a soothing color palette that patients immediately responded to. The anxiety levels in our pediatric patients have decreased noticeably, Melissa reported, reviewing the first month's data. And the staff love the improved workflow. You should tell Isabel, I suggested. Her designs made a real difference. Melissa raised an eyebrow. You two really are building a relationship, aren't you? We're trying, I acknowledged. It's complicated, but worth the effort. The clinic continued flourishing. We hired 2 additional therapists and expanded our services to include specialized programs for stroke recovery and athletic rehabilitation. Boston Magazine reached out about featuring us in their annual Healthcare Innovators issue, and a local news station requested an interview about our unique approach to patient care. Dr. Carter, how does it feel to be recognized as one of Boston's leading rehabilitation specialists? The reporter asked, microphone extended toward me. It's gratifying, I replied. But the real reward is seeing our patients regain function and independence. That's what drives our team every day. The segment aired on a Tuesday evening. Isabel and I watched it together in our apartment. Takeout containers spread across the coffee table. You were amazing, she said as the interview ended. So professional and passionate about the work. Thanks. I gathered the empty containers, suddenly self-conscious under her admiration. It's easier to speak confidently when you believe in what you're saying. Mom and Dad will have seen it, Isabel noted, her expression thoughtful. The whole segment about your success, without a single mention of the Carter family backing. That will bother them more than anything else, I agreed. Success they can't take credit for. They'll retaliate somehow, she predicted. It's what they do when they feel threatened. Her words proved prophetic sooner than either of us expected. The following Monday, Melissa burst into my office, her face tense with urgency. We have a problem. A big one. What's happened? I set aside the patient file I'd been reviewing. Boston Regional Medical Group just announced they're opening a new physical therapy center 3 blocks from us. State-of-the-art equipment, celebrity sports medicine specialists on staff. They're offering discounted rates for the first 6 months to introduce the community to superior rehabilitation services. She handed me the press release. I scanned the document, my stomach tightening at the familiar names listed as advisory board members. William and Victoria Carter are proud to serve as founding sponsors, the release stated, bringing their healthcare expertise and community connections to this exciting venture. They're trying to put us out of business, I said flatly, setting down the paper. Melissa nodded grimly. That's not all. They've hired away Jennifer Wilson. Jennifer was our pediatric specialist, a talented therapist who had been with us for 3 years. Losing her would impact our youngest patients significantly. Did she say why? They offered her double her salary and a director title, Melissa replied. She seemed genuinely torn about leaving, but with 2 kids in college? I couldn't blame Jennifer for accepting such an offer, but the calculated nature of my parents' attack was breathtaking in its cruelty. They weren't just competing, they were specifically targeting vulnerabilities they knew about through family connections. What are we going to do? Melissa asked, her usual confidence wavering. I took a deep breath, pushing down the knot of anxiety in my chest. First, we inform our staff honestly about what's happening. Then we reach out to our patients and reassure them about continuity of care. And we accelerate the implementation of our specialized programs, the ones Boston Regional can't easily duplicate. And if we lose more staff or patients, then we adapt, I said firmly. This clinic wasn't built on money or connections. It was built on quality care and genuine relationships. Those can't be bought, not even by the Carters. After Melissa left, I sat alone in my office, the weight of my parents' betrayal pressing down like a physical presence. This wasn't just business competition. It was personal vengeance disguised as professional rivalry. They weren't merely trying to succeed. They were deliberately trying to destroy what I'd built. When I returned home that evening, Isabel was waiting, her face tight with concern. I heard about Boston Regional, she said immediately. Catherine's firm was approached about designing their interior. I set down my bag, suddenly exhausted. Let me guess. They offered an exceptional fee. Triple her usual rate, Isabel confirmed. She turned them down after I explained who was behind it. Said she doesn't work with clients who use her services as weapons. The unexpected solidarity brought a lump to my throat. Thank you for telling her. Claire, Isabel hesitated. There's more. I received a call from Dad today. He offered me a position as design director for the new facility. Full creative control, executive salary, company car, everything I would have wanted 6 months ago. My heart sank. This was classic William Carter strategy: identify weaknesses and exploit them mercilessly, offering Isabel everything she'd been working toward, but on his terms rather than hers. Are you considering it? I asked carefully, trying to keep accusation from my voice. Her eyes flashed with hurt. Of course not. I told him I'm happy with my apprenticeship and hung up. She paced the small living room, agitation evident in every movement. But that's not all. He mentioned that several banks are reviewing their relationships with your clinic. Said it would be unfortunate if your business loans faced unexpected scrutiny. The implied threat was clear. My father's banking connections ran deep in Boston, deep enough to potentially create financing problems that could cripple the clinic during a critical expansion phase. He's getting desperate, I noted, trying to sound calmer than I felt. Resorting to threats means his other tactics aren't working. What are you going to do? Isabel asked, her voice small. I sank onto the couch, allowing myself a rare moment of visible vulnerability. I don't know yet, but I won't let them destroy what we've built. I looked up at her. What we've both built. Your designs are part of the clinic's success now. She sat beside me, tentatively placing her hand over mine. Then we fight back. Together. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay awake thinking about all the patients who depended on our services, the staff who had trusted their careers to my leadership, and the loans that could indeed become problematic if my father exerted his influence. By morning, determination had replaced anxiety. I'd faced my parents' dismissal and manipulation my entire life. This was just another battle in a long war, one I refused to lose. I called an emergency staff meeting before the clinic opened. Standing before my team, the family I had chosen, I explained the situation without sugarcoating. Boston Regional will open in 3 months, I told them. They're well-funded and specifically targeting our patient base. Some of you may be approached with lucrative offers to leave. I won't hold it against anyone who chooses to accept. Murmurs rippled through the group. Rachel, our newest therapist, raised her hand. Why would they target us specifically? There are bigger rehabilitation centers in Boston. I took a deep breath. Because the primary backers are my parents. This is personal as well as professional. Silence fell as this information registered. Then Melissa stepped forward. So what's the plan, boss? Because I'm not going anywhere. And I doubt anyone else here wants to work for people who destroy a successful practice out of spite. Nods and murmurs of agreement spread through the room. The show of solidarity was overwhelming. These people who knew me, not as William and Victoria Carter's overlooked daughter, but as Dr. Claire Carter, respected clinician and employer. The plan, I said, my confidence growing, is to do what we've always done, provide the best possible care to our patients, but we're also going to innovate faster than they can copy us. Outlined a strategic response, accelerating the launch of our specialized programs, reinforcing relationships with referring physicians, and implementing patient loyalty initiatives. We would emphasize what made us different: personalized care, innovative approaches, and the stability of a team that worked together seamlessly. Boston Regional will have fancy equipment and celebrity consultants. I acknowledged. But they won't have our experience, our cohesion as a team, or our deep community relationships. Those take years to build. Years we've already invested. As the meeting concluded, staff members approached individually to express support. Even Jennifer Wilson, who had accepted Boston Regional's offer, pulled me aside. I'm sorry, she said, genuine regret in her eyes. The money, with the kids in college. You don't need to explain, I assured her. You made the right decision for your family. Your parents approached me specifically, she admitted, asked detailed questions about our pediatric protocols. I didn't realize then why they were so interested. It's not your fault, I told her. They're very good at getting what they want. By the time the first patients arrived, a new determination had settled over the clinic. We weren't just fighting for our livelihoods. We were defending something we believed in, healthcare driven by patient needs rather than profit margins or personal vendettas. That evening, Isabel was waiting when I arrived home, her expression unusually animated. I have an idea, she announced without preamble, about how to counter Boston Regional. She spread sketches across the dining table, concept drawings for a rehabilitation facility unlike anything I'd seen before. What am I looking at? I asked, studying the innovative layouts. The future of your clinic, she replied. Not just expanded, but reimagined. As she explained her vision, specialized treatment zones, integrated technology, community spaces designed for support groups and educational workshops, I began to see possibilities beyond merely surviving my parents' attack. This would require significant investment, I noted, mentally calculating costs. Yes, she agreed, but not from traditional banks where Dad has influence. Then where? A smile spread across her face, not the practiced charm she'd once wielded, but genuine excitement. Eleanor Blackwell. She's been looking to diversify her foundation's healthcare investments. Catherine introduced me to her at a design conference last week, and she specifically mentioned how impressed she was with your clinic after her nephew's treatment. The pieces clicked together in my mind. Eleanor Blackwell, the formidable Boston Society matriarch whose approval my parents had courted for decades. Without success. The woman who had witnessed my stand at the Rosewood dinner and approved. You've already spoken to her about this, I realized. Isabel nodded. She's interested in discussing investment opportunities. No strings attached, no controlling interest, just financial backing for an innovative healthcare model that addresses community needs. She hesitated. I hope I wasn't overstepping. No, I said slowly, studying the designs with new eyes. You weren't overstepping. You were thinking like a true partner. The word hung between us. Partner. Not rival, not the golden child and the overlooked daughter, but equals bringing different strengths to a shared goal. Is that what we're becoming? Isabel asked softly. Partners? I think, I replied carefully. We're becoming the sisters we always should have been, the ones our parents never allowed us to be. She smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. I'd like that, very much. As we bent over the designs together, refining concepts and planning our approach to Eleanor Blackwell, I felt something I never expected to feel in relation to my family. Hope, not for their approval or recognition, but for something better. The possibility of redefining family on my own terms. On a crisp December morning, I stood before the newly installed sign, Carter Rehabilitation and Wellness Center. The expanded facility gleamed with purpose. Not ostentatious like Boston Regional's marble-clad building 3 blocks away, but thoughtfully designed for the work that happened within its walls. It's beautiful, Melissa said, appearing beside me with 2 coffee cups in hand. Everything we envisioned and more. I accepted the coffee gratefully, my breath visible in the cold air. We opened just in time. Boston Regional's grand opening is next week. With half the referring physicians they expected, Melissa noted with satisfaction. Turns out, doctors prefer sending patients to practitioners they trust rather than to, flashy new facilities with unproven outcomes. The 3 months since my parents' announcement had been the most challenging and rewarding of my professional life. Their tactics had been relentless, attempting to poach more staff, spreading rumors about our financial stability, even suggesting to certain patients that our equipment was outdated. But for every attack, we had responded with innovation rather than retaliation. Eleanor Blackwell's investment had allowed us to implement Isabel's design vision and expand our services beyond traditional physical therapy into holistic rehabilitation programs. We had added therapeutic pools, specialized equipment for neurological recovery, and community spaces for support groups and educational workshops. Most importantly, we had maintained the core values that differentiated us: personalized care, evidence-based practices, and genuine relationships with patients and referring physicians. The first patient cohort for the stroke recovery program starts today, I reminded Melissa as we headed inside, and the community lecture series begins Thursday. Already fully booked, she confirmed, and we've had 3 more physician groups request privileges to use our facilities for their patients. Inside, the center hummed with purposeful activity. Staff moved confidently through spaces designed to maximize both efficiency and healing. Patients engaged with treatment protocols in environments specifically created to support their recovery, from the sensory-friendly pediatric zone to the high-performance athletic rehabilitation area. In my office, I found a small package on my desk with a note from Isabel. For your new space. Couldn't have done it without you. Inside was a framed photograph of the 2 of us at the center's soft opening last week, both smiling, standing as equals before the building we had helped create together. Not the forced family portraits of our childhood, but an authentic moment between sisters who had found their way to mutual respect, despite everything designed to keep them apart. I placed it prominently on my desk, a reminder of how far we had both come. The morning passed in a whirlwind of patient consultations and program coordination. At noon, Melissa knocked on my door, her expression uncharacteristically hesitant. "Your parents are here," she announced. "In the lobby. They're asking to speak with you." My stomach tightened. I had expected this confrontation eventually, but not today. Not on the launch of our new programs. Did they say why? Just that it's important. William looked uncomfortable. "Victoria is Victoria." I nodded, understanding perfectly what she meant. "Show them to the conference room. I'll be there in 5 minutes." After Melissa left, I took a moment to center myself. The last time I had seen my parents was at the Rosewood dinner 6 months ago, the night that had catalyzed so much change. Since then, our communication had been conducted entirely through intermediaries and competing business maneuvers. I smoothed my lab coat, checked my reflection briefly in the small office mirror, and headed to the conference room with measured steps. No rushing, no delaying. Approaching this meeting as Dr. Claire Carter, director of a thriving rehabilitation center, not as the daughter seeking approval. They stood as I entered, my father in his customary impeccable suit, my mother elegant in designer attire that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Both looked slightly older than I remembered, the strain of recent months, etched subtly in new lines around their eyes. "Claire," my father began, his tone formal. "Thank you for seeing us." "Of course," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "How can I help you?" My mother's gaze traveled around the conference room, taking in the tasteful design and state-of-the-art technology. "The new facility is impressive," she admitted reluctantly. "Thank you. We're proud of what we've created here." "Yes, well," my father cleared his throat. "That's partly why we've come. Boston Regional opens next week, as you know. I'm aware. We've encountered some unexpected challenges," he continued, choosing his words carefully. "Several key physician groups have declined affiliating with us. Preferred provider status with major insurers has been delayed, and our projected patient numbers for the first quarter are below initial forecasts." I maintained a neutral expression, though inwardly I wasn't surprised. Boston's medical community was smaller than many realized. Relationships and reputation mattered more than marketing budgets. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I took no pleasure in anyone's failure, even theirs. "Are you?" My mother's voice carried a hint of her usual sharpness. "When it's clearly the result of your counter-efforts?" "Victoria," my father cautioned. "I haven't engaged in any counter-efforts," I replied truthfully. "I've been focused entirely on building something positive here, not on undermining your project." "Eleanor Blackwell's investment came coincidentally right after our announcement?" my mother challenged. "Eleanor invested because she believes in our approach to patient care," I explained, something she experienced firsthand when her nephew was treated here. "After Isabel introduced you," my father noted, "using contacts she developed through this design firm she's suddenly so passionate about." I felt a flare of protectiveness toward my sister. Isabel earned that introduction through her talent and hard work, just as she's earned her recent promotion to junior designer. My father's expression shifted subtly, surprise mingled with something that might almost be pride. "She's been promoted already?" "After only 6 months," I confirmed. "Catherine says she has natural talent combined with unexpected work ethic." "Unexpected," my mother repeated, a hint of bitterness in her tone. "Because we raised her to believe her path would be different. Perhaps you underestimated her," I suggested gently, "as you underestimated me." Silence fell between us, heavy with decades of misaligned expectations and missed connections. Finally, my father spoke, his voice carrying an unfamiliar note of hesitation. "The Boston Regional project was misguided," he admitted. "A reaction rather than a reasoned business decision. The market analysis was conducted hastily, and the investment has proven problematic." This was as close to an admission of error as William Carter had ever come in my presence. The implications were clear. Boston Regional was failing before it even opened. "What are you planning to do?" I asked. My parents exchanged glances. "We're considering options," my father replied carefully, "including possibly approaching Harrison Brigham about converting the space for another medical use." I nodded, processing this information. That seems sensible. The location is excellent for healthcare services, even if physical therapy isn't the right fit. Another silence fell, this one awkward rather than tense. My father glanced at his watch, then at my mother who gave him a barely perceptible nod. There was another purpose to our visit, he said finally. Next month is our 40th wedding anniversary. We're hosting a celebration at the Rosewood, family and close friends only. We would like you to attend, both you and Isabel. The invitation surprised me, especially coming now, when their competing business venture was clearly failing while mine was thriving. As your daughters or as professional connections? I asked, unable to keep a hint of skepticism from my voice. As our daughters, my mother replied, her usual polish giving way to something almost vulnerable. Whatever else has happened, Claire, you and Isabel are our children. I studied them carefully, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agendas. What I saw, instead, were two aging people confronting the consequences of their choices. The daughter they'd overlooked now thriving independently. The daughter they'd controlled now building her own path. The family dynamics they had carefully maintained for decades had crumbled, leaving them with relationships to rebuild or lose entirely. I'll discuss it with Isabel, I said finally. It will be her decision as well as mine. My father nodded, accepting this condition without argument. Another unprecedented concession. Of course. Please let us know. As they prepared to leave, my mother paused, her hand resting lightly on the conference table. The center truly is remarkable, Claire. You've created something meaningful here. Coming from Victoria Carter, this simple acknowledgement held more weight than effusive praise from anyone else. I allowed myself to accept it for what it was. Not complete understanding or full reconciliation, but perhaps the first tentative step toward a different kind of relationship. Thank you, Mother. After they left, I stood alone in the conference room, processing the unexpected encounter. Their visit represented something I had never truly expected. Not an apology, but perhaps a recognition. A small crack in the fortress of certainty that had defined their parenting. That evening, I recounted the conversation to Isabel over dinner in our apartment. No longer a temporary arrangement, but a chosen living situation we both enjoyed. An anniversary celebration, she mused, considering the invitation. At the same hotel where you confronted them 6 months ago. There's a certain symmetry to it. The question is whether we want to attend, I replied. We're under no obligation to go. Isabel twirled pasta around her fork thoughtfully. 6 months ago, I would have said yes automatically, seeking their approval was my default setting. Now, she paused. Now I think we should go, but on our terms. As the women we've, become. Not the daughters they tried to shape. I considered her perspective. You don't think it's another manipulation? Oh, it probably is, she acknowledged with a wry smile. But they're playing from a weaker position now. And sometimes, she hesitated. Sometimes people can surprise you. Like you surprised me when you offered me a place to stay. Like I hopefully surprised you by proving I could change. Her words resonated with unexpected depth. If Isabel, raised to be the golden child, the entitled sister, could grow and evolve, perhaps our parents might eventually begin to see us differently as well. All right, I decided. We'll attend, together. The night of the anniversary celebration arrived with a light snowfall that transformed Boston into a glittering wonderland. Isabel and I arrived at the Rosewood together, both dressed elegantly but on our own terms. Her in a beautifully structured pantsuit she had designed herself, me in a deep blue dress that complemented my practical nature while still honoring the occasion. The ballroom was transformed with tasteful decorations and soft lighting, my mother's impeccable taste evident in every detail. Familiar faces from Boston society nodded greetings as we entered, their expressions revealing varying degrees of curiosity about our presence. Eleanor Blackwell approached immediately, her shrewd eyes warming with genuine pleasure. The Carter sisters, together at last, she remarked, kissing each of us on the cheek. Your clinic's new stroke recovery program is already making waves in the medical community, Claire. And Isabel, Catherine showed me your concepts for that nonprofit healthcare center in Dorchester. Remarkable talent. Thank you, Mrs. Blackwell, Isabel replied, a becoming flush of pride coloring her cheeks. Your foundation's support means everything to that project. Talent should be nurtured, my dear, no matter where it appears. Eleanor's gaze drifted meaningfully toward our parents, who stood greeting guests across the room. Sometimes the most valuable gems are overlooked because people are too fixated on more obvious sparkle. The wisdom in her observation wasn't lost on either of us. With a final knowing smile, Eleanor moved away to join her husband near the champagne fountain. Shall we? I asked Isabel, gesturing toward our parents. She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Together, as we approached, I saw my parents register our arrival, relief flickering briefly across my father's face, my mother's posture relaxing fractionally. Whatever their flaws, they had wanted us here tonight. Claire, Isabel, my father greeted, his voice carrying genuine warmth. You both look lovely. Congratulations on 40 years, Isabel offered, accepting his brief embrace. Thank you for coming, my mother said, her eyes lingering on each of us in turn. It matters that you're both here. The vulnerability in her tone surprised me. Victoria Carter rarely revealed anything resembling emotional need, especially not in public. 40 years is a significant milestone, I acknowledged. We wouldn't miss it. The conversation that followed was stilted but civil, careful exchanges about neutral topics, each of us mindful of the public setting and the complex history that lingered unspoken between us. After dinner and the expected toasts, the small orchestra began playing, and couples moved to the dance floor. My father approached Isabel first, offering his hand in a traditional father-daughter dance. I watched them move across the floor, their interaction more relaxed than I had seen in months. They look well together, my mother observed, appearing beside me with 2 champagne flutes. She offered one to me, a peace offering of sorts. They do, I agreed, accepting the glass. Isabel has found her path, she's flourishing. My mother sipped her champagne, her gaze fixed on her husband and younger daughter. Yes, she is, without our guidance. The admission clearly cost her something. As are you. We're both happier this way, I said gently, building lives based on our own choices rather than others' expectations. She turned to face me fully, her perfect composure slipping just slightly. I never understood you, Claire. Even as a child, you were different, independent in ways that seemed unnecessary, resistant to the advantages we tried to provide. Because they came with conditions, I pointed out. Love shouldn't be conditional, Mother. Is that what you think? Her voice held genuine surprise. That our love was conditional? Wasn't it? Approval when we conformed to your expectations, disapproval when we didn't. She was silent for a long moment, watching the dancers with unfocused eyes. We wanted to give you both the best possible future, the path of least resistance in a world that can be cruel to women who aren't properly positioned. She glanced at me. Your father and I fought for everything we achieved. We wanted to spare you that struggle. But the struggle is where growth happens, I replied. It's where we discover who we really are. Another silence fell between us. Not comfortable, but not entirely strained either. Finally, my mother spoke again, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. Your center is remarkable, Claire. Truly. When I visited with your father, I could see why patients choose it, why physicians refer to you specifically. She hesitated. You've created something meaningful, something better than what we envisioned for you. The acknowledgement, so long, sought, so unexpected now, brought a lump to my throat. Thank you for saying that. I'm not promising miracles, she cautioned, ever the pragmatist. Your father and I are who we are, but perhaps we could begin finding a new way forward, as a family. Not an apology, not a complete transformation, but an opening, a small crack in the fortress walls through which genuine connection may eventually flow. It was more than I had expected and perhaps exactly what was possible right now. I'd like that, I said simply. Later that evening, as Isabel and I prepared to leave, my father approached us near the coat check, his expression uncharacteristically hesitant. Thank you both for coming, he said. It meant a great deal to your mother. And to me. It was a lovely celebration, Isabel replied diplomatically. He cleared his throat. I've been thinking, Boston Regional's facility is sitting empty, the equipment already installed. It seems wasteful to let it remain unused while Harrison determines its future purpose. I waited, sensing there was more to this observation than simple business efficiency. Perhaps, he continued carefully, your center might be interested in using it as a satellite location. Temporary arrangement, of course, until permanent decisions are made. But it would allow you to extend your programs to another part of the city immediately, rather than waiting for future expansion plans. The offer took me by surprise. Practical, business-focused, but also a potential bridge between our separate worlds. That's an interesting proposition, I acknowledged. I'd need to discuss it with my team and review the specifics. Of course, he agreed quickly. Due diligence is essential. A hint of unexpected pride crossed his features. As you've consistently demonstrated. As we stepped outside into the gently falling snow, Isabel linked her arm through mine. Did our father just offer you use of the facility he built to compete with you? I believe he did, I replied, still processing the surprising turn of events. Not an apology, she noted, but perhaps an acknowledgement. Baby steps, I agreed, for all of us. We walked in comfortable silence through the snowy Boston streets, two sisters who had found their way back to each other despite everything designed to keep them apart. The path forward with our parents remained uncertain, complex family dynamics weren't easily resolved, and decades of patterns couldn't be undone in a single evening. But standing in the gentle snowfall, I felt something that had eluded me for most of my life: peace with my place in the world. Not as William and Victoria Carter's overlooked daughter, not as Isabel's overshadowed sister, but as Claire Carter, physician, business owner, mentor, and now perhaps bridge builder. In the 6 months since that fateful dinner at the Rosewood, I had defended what was mine, but more importantly, I had discovered what truly mattered: creating something meaningful, nurturing authentic relationships, and finding the strength to offer second chances, even to those who might not deserve them. As we approached our apartment building, Isabel squeezed my arm gently. "What are you thinking about? You've gone quiet." I smiled, watching our footprints appear in the fresh snow, side by side, following the same path home. "I'm thinking that sometimes the most powerful response to injustice isn't retaliation, but creation. Building something so undeniably good that it changes the narrative entirely. Like your clinic," she observed. "Like both of us," I corrected her, finding our own definitions of success instead of accepting the limitations others tried to impose. Above us, snowflakes continued their silent descent, transforming the familiar cityscape into something new and unexplored. Tomorrow would bring decisions about my father's offer, ongoing challenges at the center, and the continuing journey of redefining family. Relationships on healthier terms. But tonight, in this moment, the simple truth was enough. Family doesn't mean surrendering your worth. True family respects your sacrifices, your boundaries, and your success. When you choose dignity over exploitation, you don't lose family. You find yourself. And sometimes, if you're fortunate, you find each other too.